Welcome to this edition of The Living Legends. I am Fayaz Qureshi. In this program, we speak to a medical practitioner who established a clinic that has now grown to over 15 establishments. He's established a regional and a continental forum to make healthcare systems in Africa become integrated and affordable. Currently, he chairs the Kenya Health Professional Oversight Authority, the government's watchdog on professional standards for those in the medical profession, and is also the current chairman and founder of Africa Health Business. And our special guest this evening is Dr. Amit Thakker, the founder of Avenue Healthcare. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you, Fayaz. It's a
great
pleasure
to have you on board The Living Legends.
Thank you, Fayaz. It's a pleasure to be here, and I've seen you doing The Living Legends, so I'm really, truly humbled to be your guest.
And we're extremely honored that you're here with us. Right, let's get going.
Yeah.
Let's start off with your early life and education.
So, yeah, I was born in Mombasa. I'm a third generation Kenyan. My early days were in the city of Mombasa. Then I had my primary and secondary education here. I went to the University of Nairobi, right, and graduated in 1995 as a medical doctor, and did my internship at the Kenyatta National Hospital before establishing Avenue Healthcare as a startup company in that year.
And your schooling was in primary, secondary?
Yes. So primary school was at the Consolata Primary School in Westland. Secondary was Highway Secondary School. And my A-levels was at Strathmore College before University of Nairobi.
Before your transition to University of Nairobi. Now, you studied medicine at the University of Nairobi at a tumultuous time. Doctors striking, others leaving the country for better opportunities. And obviously, University of Nairobi closures due to changes in policy like withdrawal of the boom, which was your stipend.
Correct.
Now, how did this period affect your study programs at that point in time?
So one big thing that it affected me was it took me 7 years instead of 5 years to complete my training. But the other realization that came to me was that healthcare was a challenging sector, and it still is. And we needed to balance the economics and provision of affordable healthcare. Right. I realized that payment for professionals, when doctors went on strike or nurses went on strike, was mainly because of the amount of pay they used to get. Yeah. The dialogue between public sector professionals and the senior officials was lacking, and dialogue between public and private was lacking.
It was a huge brain drain in the 1992-93, right, when all these strikes were taking place.
And the brain drain went on for another 15 years. It's reduced significantly at this time, where we're getting more bilateral engagements in placement of nurses in UK. But you're right, in those days the amount of health professionals that did go to UK or US, many of them have established. Some of the doctors that used to work with me, a handful of my nurses and doctors are working and living in the US, having found jobs that paid them at least 3 to 5 times what they would earn here.
What drove you to take a path of having a hospital compete with the likes of Aga, Nairobi and Mpisha hospitals? Big task.
One fine day I was working at Kenyatta National Hospital, and a staff of my friend's company was there. And I asked him that maybe you need to move your staff to a private hospital to get surgery done quickly. He asked me only one question: where do you want me to move him? Nairobi Hospital? With a huge cost and deposit like that? It dawned on to me that there was no choice between affordable, perhaps public sector healthcare services and the high cost of the hospitals that you mentioned.
The gap was too big.
Too huge.
Yeah.
This led to me starting Avenue Healthcare as literally a mobile healthcare player in the market, where I made a van and I started taking healthcare closer to the people. That van was decked with an examination couch and a pharmacy cabinet to take healthcare to corporates, large companies, large farms, and that's how Avenue began, with an in-house clinic. It was clearly that rather than having these patients come to the hospital, we will have a regular...
It's extremely innovative.
It was a new thing. Then the hospitals that you mentioned, Mpisha, Khan, Nairobi, weren't doing that. So in-house clinics was the beginning of Avenue, and we started a membership plan. With a fixed fee, you could become a member of Avenue Healthcare. So there was a predictable cost by the finance managers of large companies. Right. So we became a membership plan, in-house clinic, with mobile clinic with a base in Parklands for inpatient services.
That was on First Avenue.
First Avenue.
Right, I remember that. How did it grow over the years?
So,
because it's spread.
Yeah. Every year we set up one more clinic. So from a handful of staff in 95 in Avenue Healthcare, by the time it was the year 2000, 5 years on, we had 5 clinics already. And thereafter we continued putting clinic after clinic in different places in Nairobi. Then the first clinic was officiated by Najib Balala, who was the governor of Mombasa at that time.
Great.
In 2004. And then we went to Kisumu, which was another hub, when Shakil, who was the mayor.
Yes.
Shakil Ahmed was the mayor of Kisumu. So we slowly developed more clinics and moved from one hospital in Parklands to one in Kisumu, and now there's also one in Thakker. That was the real growth strategy. Put more facilities closer to the people.
Rising costs, still affordable?
Look, it's still a big challenge. If you ask anyone in Kenya, in fact, most people in Africa, they'll tell you private healthcare is still unaffordable. If you don't have insurance, to pay out of pocket really is a burden to households. And so many families slide into poverty because of unpredictable healthcare costs. So we've got a long journey, and that's really the quest under which I started the work outside Kenya.
Fine. So you sold it then?
Yes.
After a spell of 15 years nearly?
About 20.
20 years?
Yeah.
To a Braj Group?
Yes. So me and my partners all felt that it was a good time to exit, and that exit was to a private equity that wanted to use Avenue as the platform and multiply these hospital beds across Kenya.
Right.
Braj Group was the one. Before Braj, it was Orios Capital. Actually, our discussion started with Orios, which then moved towards Abraj. And then Abraj had its tumultuous time.
Share of issues. Went into liquidation. Then they sold it to
a company called TPG, the Pacific Group, which is based out.
And they're spreading like wildfire. They seem to be doing a pretty good job with their CEO, Imran Osman.
They've put in a group CEO. They've got a really good professional staff now, and they've got investments behind the group, and you will see expansion in not only at the hospital level, but also at the clinic level, so that more patients across Kenya get services.
That's the right direction.
Yeah.
Now, you took this concept to make healthcare affordable in the region through the East African Health Platform.
Correct.
Now, what are the highs and lows of trying to have a common approach to affordable healthcare?
Now, I realized that the disease patterns in East Africa are similar. The GDP patterns are similar. And the communities are facing the same challenges in accessing private healthcare. So in Uganda, we created something called the Uganda Healthcare Federation.
Right.
Similar one in Rwanda, where we talked to all the private sector players that through partnership, you can have a good referral system, through good supply chain mechanism, and reduce costs of healthcare. And this has really worked. Uganda Healthcare Federation and other federations across Africa are now engaging government to change policies, reduce unwanted costs, as well as to network within private sector to improve quality of care and reduce cost of care. So this platform was purely for collaboration between players and between countries.
And the issues that you face are common across the region?
Across the region and across the continent. Even in the Francophone, French-speaking Africa, I'll tell you same. Very few people are insured. Many people are paying out of pocket for healthcare in Africa. So we literally need to start changing the health financing matrix of how healthcare is obtained in Africa.
Now, this was later escalated to when you started Africa Healthcare Foundation. Now, what are the common areas of concern for Africa's healthcare, and how do you approach it given the cultural diversity of the continent?
Look, I think for years also the pandemic told us and showed us the two or three big challenges. The first challenge is that we have only 3% of the health workforce in Africa, and yet we have 17% of the global population. Only 3% of the health workforce is in Africa. So we do have a very, very low...
1.1 billion across Africa.
Say 1.3 and 4, it's still counting.
Right.
So we need to bridge that gap. between the health workforce and the population.
Okay.
How are we going to do that? I think that the digital health era has now landed in Africa. It was illegal to do telemedicine before the pandemic. Nobody had a license.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And now we have
Yeah.
over 75 companies in Kenya that have been licensed to carry out telemedicine, virtual care.
Right.
I know many viewers have tried it. And maybe in 5 years' time, the number of viewers who will be listening to this will say, yes, we have actually experienced healthcare digitally.
Yeah.
So you can dial a doctor, you can even dial a delivery of your medicine. We never used to be able to do that. In fact, have you had a test done at home? You had phlebotomists or laboratory specialists coming home to do your swab, to do a COVID test.
This service is being provided now.
Yeah. So
which is pretty convenient.
So convenience and digital healthcare will be one major area in bridging the gap of the health workforce.
Digital is a big stride, and people will adapt to it.
They will.
Because it is the way forward.
And the younger generation is very comfortable in having a teleconsultation and potentially having a telediagnosis. So that's one common area that I've been seeing in Africa.
Right.
The second big area is the area of health financing. Universal health coverage is the UHC mantra that we hear in many, many countries.
Yeah.
In fact, parliaments across Africa, UHC is the buzzword. Can we get more people covered? Can we have people accessing healthcare without really going into pockets to pay for expenses? And that is where the state and private sector need to have a mixed formula so that we have everyone covered for at least basic services, and that will reduce the health.
It sounds like a dream. Will it ever come true?
Well, we have to carry on. Maybe the Agenda 2050.
Yes. Now, what do you think of the government's contribution
Yes.
in terms of services at Kenyatta National Hospital with the introduction of NHIF?
Correct.
Has it made a huge difference?
It has made a huge difference. No, I'll still hear people complaining, and many viewers will have different experiences. But Fayaz, from the time I started 3 decades ago
Right.
to where we are,
Yeah.
the public health sector in Kenya, kudos to them. They've moved in huge leaps and bounds.
Personally, I feel they've done a wonderful job.
The
Your
clinic-
dialysis, your operations,
Absolutely.
all covered.
Go to Thakker Road, that hospital known as the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital. They have Africa's second sophisticated machinery for cancer therapy. It's known as a cyber knife. It's Africa's second machine after Cairo, and it's on Thakker Road to accurately manage cancer cases. Accuray from US provided this machine. And so we are moving ahead. MRI,
So that's a free service.
no, there will be a payment for it, of course. But the fact is that it's available. You don't really have to leave Kenya to get this accurate. And if you see this machinery,
Oh, it's a private setup.
it is in KU. It's still run by the Kenyatta University, but they have to recoup their costs. And I'm
I
sure
understand.
there's.
So there
But-
should be a minimal cost of maintaining it. and
But
trying
to your
recoup
point, the clinics are better, the hospitals are better, the supply chain is improved. But is it to the standard that we want? Maybe not. So reforms are going on. Is NHIF improving? Absolutely. From the time I remember, their efficiency costs or their efficiency overall has improved. But there's room for improvement, and that's why I hope that the Kenya Kwanza team are very focused, and UHC is on the spotlight on what they're doing.
So I think they've done a wonderful job so far. So let's give credit where it's due. We're always quite critical, but this time we must give credit. Now,
Thank you.
You also currently chair the Kenya Health Professional Oversight Authority.
Correct.
Now, this is a government institution that is supposed to promote best practices according to the standards of the industry.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Explain its role in Kenya.
So, look, we have 42 cadres in the health profession.
Right.
9 are regulated. These include doctors, nurses, dentists, physiotherapists, so on and so forth. Our role is to ensure that these regulatory boards do a great job, and the unregulated professions like the audiologists, the community health workers, podiatrists, so on and so forth, get regulated, including opticians. So we are busy rolling out first the licenses of the unlicensed. That's our first job, our mandate. Our second mandate is to ensure that the population and the public, if they have a complaint against any health professional, there should be a clear, systematic manner. Most Kenyans will tell you that you can't complain against a doctor because nobody listens to it. We want to.
They also say doctors are a closed shop.
Closed shop. And by the way, if you complain about a doctor, nobody will listen to you.
Nobody will listen to you.
And you won't get your case heard. Now, we want to demystify
now, this is where I want to bring now, this is where I want to bring the relationship between medics and the public. Okay?
Yes.
Right? Kenyans have stories of misdiagnoses that have cost them a lot of money. And then they seek alternative opinions abroad. And then they suddenly realize that that wasn't the right diagnosis. Ends up costing them more. They lose trust in doctors.
Absolutely.
And regaining that trust is an uphill task.
Yes.
What are you doing at the authority to bring back credibility to the profession in this information age?
One thing is to have an official complaint lodging system. If there is a transparent, easy complaint lodging system, it will bring more trust to the public about healthcare.
Right.
The second one is we are trying to tell the healthcare professionals about not being a very closed shop and being open with patients should a patient want a second opinion. So if you wanted a second opinion, Fayaz, telling your doctor you want a second opinion is an uphill task.
Right.
You're extremely scared and you probably would do it behind his back. And then you'll end up going to India to get the treatment at half the price and come back and say the Kenyan doctors are fleecing them.
Right.
We want to change that narrative. We want the doctors and hospitals to be very open about patients requiring second opinion and costs. This complaint lodging system and fair appeals will improve trust in the healthcare system. That's what we're doing at the authority.
It's been talked about for years. Will it ever happen?
Yes, it's actually happening. Maybe in a year's time when I come back, I'll tell you how many complaints we've been able to address and making it easy for Kenyans to complain. And Kenyans are a vocal society. So Kenyans on Twitter, Kenyans on social media. So if we give a dialogue, it's the best way to change it. I'm very optimistic that the trust level in the health service is going to grow.
I like your optimism and I wish you all the best. Now, we talked about this a little earlier. Universal health care.
Yes.
It's going to be a difficult task.
We need more money for health, but we also need more health for the money, right? So we do get a certain allocation budget from the Treasury. We need to do the best we can with that funding. But we do need to raise funds for healthcare sector. We need at least 15% of the budget. It's 3 times what is being allocated from Treasury.
Can a model come up where every citizen is insured? Some backing for the government that works with the private sector? A kind of an American system which is
correct,
also being abused.
You know, I think you're so right.
Yeah.
And this is a discussion we have almost every other day. The main challenge is that we have a very small formally employed sector in Kenya. Our numbers are really small. 2-3 million formally employed. We have a very large informal population. To have the informal population contribute regularly is an extremely difficult task. Most people pay when they're sick. When they're not sick, they don't contribute to the system. Now, how do you bring everybody in a contributory bracket
on board?
That is the biggest challenge that Kenya Kwanza is facing, and they're trying to engage the informal sector to be fully engaged in contributory system. And also they are looking at a higher contribution to NHIF and NSSF that we've already seen. So the whole welfare system is being strengthened under the current administration.
Okay, you over the years you've been honored with various awards.
Correct.
Tell us about the awards that are close to your heart.
The 2 awards that are closest to my heart is 4 years into my business at Avenue Healthcare. I was invited by Rotary International, right? By Mr. Mwenesi, Mike Eldon, and many others. And they accorded me the best male entrepreneur of the year in Kenya. Having seen what I had done in 4 years in the private healthcare space with mobile clinics and in-house clinics and more people being given affordable private healthcare, It's a real award that I cherish. In fact, that award sits in my office, and I quite often remember.
It's extremely honorable.
2004 was the other award that was bestowed onto me by Professor Kamarogo, who I admire a lot as a mentor. And I received the Kenya Medical Association Chairman's Award. That award was for the profession being honored, or professional being honored in the medical space. So those two awards are very close to my heart.
Once again, a very, very big honor. It's been an extreme pleasure speaking to Dr. Amit Thakker, the current chairman and founder of Africa Health Business and the chairman of the Kenya Health Professional Oversight Authority. He founded Avenue Healthcare and saw it grow to a large enterprise. He oversaw the growth of the Avenue Healthcare Group and set up an organization to integrate and upgrade healthcare in East Africa and Africa. Thank you, Dr. Thakker, for being our guest. I am Fayaz Qureshi. Thank you for watching.